Hello, dear friends. Skepticism and disbelief is the result of ignorance, because some banks revealed in drips and drabs some time ago that they are working with quantum finance, such as BBVA, but this is known by those at the top, not by the employees of each bank. Banks will not disappear, as some believe, but will change to a more modest role as public financial advisory offices, since they will not be able to control the new system, let alone cheat financially as in the old days. Opinion piece. Clearing up doubts about QFS. Ron Giles explained how it works. Now is the time to test the system. Charlie Ward and Simon Bucks talk about it. Each bank was given a code to gain access. They have access but not control of the gold in the QFS. QFS blocks illegal transfers in 3 minutes. Bankers are not part of the new financial system. SWIFT system was manipulated by the QFS to prevent theft. The divine is on the move and nothing can stop this force. That side has no money it can't control, and they know it. The Vatican bribery accounts are currently blocked. They are waiting until a critical mass of sleepers awakens. It must be 60% before they make their move, and we are at 56%. The quantum computer has taken over the core banking system. There is an agreement that this process will begin with a jubilee of sorts. Joe Biden cancels student loan forgiveness, breaking his promise. Peter Schiff and Ben Shapiro say the government is ruining the economy. Israel rejects cooperation with United Nations Human Rights Council. Zika Outbreak due to release of genetically modified mosquitoes in Brazil. Prince Charles is seething with anger over Prince Harry's revelations. Luis Elizondo accuses Pentagon of discrediting him and hiding the truth from the people. Child witnesses secular craftland from his bedroom window. Let's start. The quantum financial system, QFS, uses gold-backed digital certificates. Ron Giles has just released. A gold-backed certificate is a block or packet of data that acts as a currency increment. The data refers to a serial number of a kilo of gold used to back that currency augmentation, hence gold-backed currency. This is nothing new, because we have talked about it before. What is new is that the gold used to back the currency is already in place. It is hidden in a series of 4 or 5 gold bullion vaults placed around the world in strategic locations. Any new gold that is there to back more money will be melted down and assigned a similar ascending serial number, which conforms the library to the library filling system using the vaults. Gold certificates. Digital gold certificates have already been established, but they remain in an active state until there is a transaction that changes them to an active usable state. In QFS, a transaction occurs when an individual account owner transfers money to another QFS account in payment for a financial transaction. It acts like real currency because it can be used to buy things, but only digital gold certificates are transferred digitally from one account to another. The ethelings in charge believe they need to test the QFS to make sure that all the transfers are accounted for and that the entire debit and credit system is balanced every time a transfer is made in a nanosecond. Therefore, it is necessary to activate the gold digital certificates to test the system in the dry. But in a test, digital gold certificates are not linked to real money because it is only a test. A lot of testing has been done, so now it's time to test the system with real funds attached to digital gold certificates, which do not represent real currency, but act as such. This begins Operation Sting for the supposed white hat bankers who don't know it. The system is activated. Giles Ward and Simon Pax and other disclosures are correct that the QFS is activated and has been for some time. The problem is for those who don't know the difference between using active and inactive gold certificates for a drill, and leaves the QFS open for this game. Charlie and Simon and a few others are confident that the QFS is active worldwide and banks have become part of the QFS with their own connections. Each bank was given a PIN code so they can have direct access to the QFS. The dark side is in on this and sends this information to those white hat bankers with double agents who try to steal the funds any way they can, but the trap is already set. Many thousands of strated white hat bankers has been assembled to test the system. They are told that for this test, the digital gold certificates are activated with real money and without the full system of checks and balances in place. They are told that there are $200 billion in real funds that have been given to the QFS to test the reliability of the system. These millions have been seized by the Treasury Department from illegal activities. They can now be used to test the QFS, but again, without the checks and balances system in place as normal, because they are white hats and would not cheat or try to steal the funds. So, the QFS team gave information to the white hat bankers that the QFS will be activated with real funds represented by digital gold certificates for a live test. Let's say they have 10,000 white hat bankers and they have divided $200 billion among 10 of them to exchange with each other to see if the system is working properly. That's $20 billion each. The QFS does not do normal bank trading, which uses a ping to see if the money is in the trading account for bank trading. This time, bankers will actually transfer these funds back and forth with digital gold certificates that will be transferred to different accounts. A ping is a diagnostic utility in computer networks that checks the communication status of the local host with one or more remote computers on a network running IP. Experiment. Each banker sets up accounts that can be used for transfers and shares account numbers with each other to test the transfer system. This banker do not understand the divine consciousness that houses the QFS. They didn't get the memo and still think it was created by human beings and can somehow be compromised. That is why it's necessary to test it. If the green button was pressed and the bankers start transferring funds, it sounds the alarm that the system has an error, a mistake, and would not be tracking the funds to where they went. In such a case, the QFS would close the transfer in 3 minutes to find out where the problem is. This is the green light the double agent moles were waiting for. The 3-minute break would give the white hat bankers, double agent, time to set up new accounts and transfer money to them, and there would be no way to track where the funds went or where they would be. The activities could not be tracked, so they would start doing what they normally do, which is steal the money when they think they can get away with it. The sting rebelled, but in reality, the QFS system of security and balance can never be compromised and has always worked perfectly. Would you expect anything less from a divine consciousness creation? The gold digital certificates were activated for this test, yes, but without funds attached as the white hat bankers think. It was publicly announced that the QFS would be activated, and bankers believe they are part of the new financial system, but they are not part of it. This has been their thinking for 8 to 10 months. Beneath the surface is the quantum divine consciousness that many refer to as the quantum computer has quietly taken over the entire core banking system. It completes the transfers and complies with all the bankers' computer commands as they believe they are in charge of their banking computers. The SWIFT system was manipulated, and the bankers did not notice it for a long time, as the quantum consciousness diverted the transfers to the intended accounts. The tremendous loss of revenue was enormous, as the source of SWIFT trading accounted for 86% of their total revenue. Speaking of frustrated bankers around the world, they don't have the usual control over their own computer system. Being really smart, the bankers have figured it out themselves. A knock on their door has also helped them understand why their business is over. This is the sting beneath the surface, and this part of the QFS sting we have been talking about. The white hat bankers double agent has received the kicker. Over 4,600 white hat double agents got their go straight to jail cards, and none of them made it through in this monopoly game they were playing. They were all arrested. This operation has affected every aspect of dark side society, including money laundering and bribe paying and other illegal political activities. The bad guys have nowhere to turn, no money they can control, and they know it. They can either give us or just die a very slow and painful death in bankruptcy. They have been walled up, and the walls are slowly moving in on them as we speak. Many of them are no longer sleeping. They are wide awake, and many have literally died of fear. They underestimated all the divine power that has been unleashed upon them. They are waiting until a critical mass of awakening sleepers is reached. I hear it must be 60% before they make their move. We are at 56%, and we move up to reach critical mass, and then the dominoes will begin to fall. This falling domino effect doesn't take long, so once the first domino falls, the rest will follow soon, if not immediately after. The divine is in motion, and nothing can stop this force. It has been decreed, and so it will become our reality. We can win this war, which most do not even know existed. I decree that all lightworkers stand under the divine umbrella of protection as we go through the storm together. We may not even get wet. Leave it in God's hand, for He is in control of this. Positive blogging. Vatican bribery accounts blocked. The bribery accounts of more than 6,000 world leaders have fallen out of the control of the P2 Freemasonry, according to sources. When a person becomes prime minister, president, governor of a central bank, etc., he receives a visit from someone from the Vatican Bank and hands him a passbook with an astronomical sum of money. This can range from $100 million for the head of a small country or over $1 billion for the leader of a large country, sources say. The person is then told, "Welcome to the rich man's club," but is also warned that if he refuses the money, he will be killed. This is the famous choice between silver or lead that the secret government has used for control since time immemorial. The person now in charge, a member of royalty, agreed to support the creation of a future planning agency to carry out vast projects to end poverty, stop environmental destruction, and allow for an exponential expansion of the earth. There is also agreement that this process will begin with a jubilee of sorts, or an one-time cancellation of debt and redistribution of assets. However, before this work can begin, the secret elite cyber war in the West must be ended. This war, at its deepest level, pits the bloodline aristocrats against the meritocracy Gnostic forces. Fallen angels manipulate humans. Fallen angels have posed as extraterrestrials to manipulate the human genome throughout abduction phenomena, to create humanoid vessels in which to incarnate. They control the governments of the earth. They own the banking system. They own the media. They own the technology giants, the pharmaceutical industry, education, and the manipulation of history, science, and religion. Many genies, demons, interdimensional entities, Anunnaki, and more can be placed under this mantle. Economy. Bitcoin recovers. The world's leading cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, recovered to over $40,000 on Wednesday, a week after its price plummeted to about $30,000. Gold to set new highs this year. While the cryptocurrency market has been experiencing turbulence of late, gold climbed on Wednesday above the key psychological level of $1,900 per ounce, which it had not achieved since early January. Some Russian inmates earn more than doctors and lawyers. Russia's harsh and uncompromising prisons hardly have a reputation as one-way ticket to the top, but for a lucky few, inmate labor is proving to be an extremely lucrative activity while serving time. Peter Schiff fears dollar crisis is at hand. Money manager and economist Peter Schiff says all the debt and money printing by the Fed will ultimately come down to one thing: the US dollar. The Fed has gotten away with this Fed money creation policy since the last financial crisis in 2008. In 2021, the consequences of money for nothing are finally appearing. Schiff explains that the inflationary crisis and the dollar crisis are much larger economic events, which will have a much greater impact than the 2008 financial crisis. Peter Schiff and Ben Shapiro opine that the government is screwing up the economy. In many ways, it appears that the economy is beginning to recover from the impacts of the health crisis. GDP growth has picked up. The stock market is roaring. Many people are optimistic. But during an appearance of the Ben Shapiro show, Peter Schiff said this is not a real recovery, and explains that all the government help is ruining the economy, distorting the labor market and destroying the dollar. Peter said that the government shutdowns were the root of the problem. When economy shut down, people stopped producing goods and services. When people are not productive, they need to reduce their consumption. You can't consume things that are not produced, but the government didn't want people to stop spending, even though it ordered them to stop working. John Williams warns of hyperinflation in 2022. Economist John Williams, founder of the ShadowStats.com, says the Fed has backed itself into such a tight corner with the economy that it really only has two options. Williams says it all comes down to inflation or implosion. What would happen to the financial system is if the Fed stopped printing massive amounts of money for stimulus and debt service. Williams explains, you could see a financial implosion by preventing liquidity from being placed in the system. The system needs newly created dollars to function. Without that liquidity, you would see a bigger economic implosion that you've already seen. The Fed needs to keep the banking system afloat. They want to keep the economy afloat. All of that requires a huge influx of liquidity in these difficult times. House prices soar. House price growth accelerated in March, rising at the fastest pace since 2013. The trend is likely to remain strong in coming months, increasing pressure on the Fed to reduce purchases of mortgage-backed securities in the second half of the year. Biden to cancel student loan forgiveness, breaking campaign promise. The president will eliminate student loan forgiveness from the budget this week, breaking a campaign promise to the mortgage. The report that Biden broke his campaign promise to cancel $10,000 in school loans may infuriate the likes of Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, along with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who have pushed Biden to forgive up to $50,000 in debt. China. Pentagon now says China is top threat. The head of Space Command said Saturday that the Chinese are the top space threat facing the US, not only on Earth, but also in space, because they are increasing their space capabilities, General Dickinson said in Tokyo during a visit to Japan. China's new stealth bomber. As China prepares to deploy its new Xi'an H-20 strategic bomber, the era of the US qualitative advantage in military equipment is coming to an end. China has closed the technology gap and is preparing to move forward. Chinese yuan strengthens. The Chinese yuan rose on Thursday, with the currency reaching its strongest level since March 2016, against the broad basket of peer currencies. The yuan rose 0.2% to 98 points against the group of 24 exchange rates, surpassing its previous 2018 peak. The currency gained as much as 0.3% to 6.39 per dollar, the highest since June 2018. Middle East. Israel rejects cooperation with UN Human Rights Council. Israel refuses to cooperate with the Commission of Gaza and Israel, the establishment of which is provided for by a United Nations Human Rights Council resolution, and rejects the resolution itself, claiming it acted in accordance with international law and ethical standards, Israeli Foreign Ministry said in a statement. Iran blocks inspectors from accessing images of nuclear sites as Vienna deal looms. It appears Iran may be applying last-minute leverage just ahead of the final round of nuclear talks in Vienna. And at one point it has been widely reported that the main parties, including the US, are on the verge of reaching agreement on a deal, as final documents are being drafted. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf announced Saturday that IAEA inspectors will no longer have access to surveillance footage of the country's nuclear sites. Iran has 69 million barrels of oil ready for when sanctions end. Iran may have some 69 million barrels of oil in floating storage waiting on tanker trucks to trip to buyers when sanctions on its crude oil exports are lifted. Afghan army outposts rapidly yield to Taliban as U.S. withdrawal continues. According to a New York Times report, dozens of outposts and bases belonging to the Afghan National Army have surrendered to the Taliban in the past month as part of a demoralizing raid aimed at maximizing the impact of the U.S. withdrawal on Afghan forces. Many of the men who surrendered have been given money and civilian clothes and sent back after recording them and swearing they would not rejoin the Afghan army, thus giving information to the Taliban. More news. Gates divorce prompts scrutiny of his past. Philanthropist Bill Gates' image is losing luster after the press began digging into the tycoon's past following the announcement of his divorce from wife Melinda. Prince Charles is seething with anger over Prince Harry's series of revelations. In his new mental health-focused documentary series, The Self You Can't See, in quotes, Prince Harry shared information about his upbringing and how his father failed as a parent, just 2 months after claiming he had troubled connection with his father in a televised interview with Oprah Winfrey in March. Prince Charles is said to be very unhappy with Prince Harry's constant bombshells. The patriarch is hurt and disappointed by his youngest son's comments. Conspiracy. 15% believe in conspiracy. A new poll shows that 15% of Americans support one of the tenets of the conspiracy theory, that government and media would be controlled by a group of Satan worshippers. Artificial intelligence is used to profile people. Digital video surveillance systems can't just identify who someone is. They can also figure out how someone is feeling and what kind of personality they have. They can even tell how they might behave in the future. And the key to unlocking this information about a person is the movement of their head. That's the claim of the company behind the artificial intelligence system, bribery Image. The smartest and most watched city. Singapore is the city that most often ranks at the top of global smart city rankings. Among other things, it has digitalized its healthcare system with online medical consultations and portable monitoring equipment, created an autonomous fleet of vehicles for elderly and disabled residents, and installed an artificial intelligence-powered traffic light control system for smoother traffic and pedestrian flow. Orwell's 1984 could be fulfilled at 2024. Microsoft CEO Brad Smith recently warned that if lawmakers do not enforce strict regulations on artificial intelligence technology, life could soon mirror the reality described in George Orwell's novel 1984. Fauci accepts that the lab leak theory. Anthony Fauci finally admitted that the possibility of the bug coming out of a lab should be investigated. Now watch the media rehabilitate this once crazy conspiracy theory into an acceptable elite opinion. Zika Outbreak due to release of genetically modified mosquitoes in Brazil. The outbreak of the Zika virus currently affecting the Americas may have been triggered by the release of genetically modified mosquitoes in 2012, critics say. The insects were engineered by biotech experts to combat the spread of dengue fever and other diseases, and released to Brazil's general population in 2012. Netflix Army of the Dead sparks panic among audiences over presence of dead pixels on their screens. On social networks, many netizens have criticized the sporadic presence of dead pixels and blank space in some scenes of the Netflix movie Army of the Dead. Released last weekend, reports Variety magazine. Technology. Tesla ditches radar, says its car will not use a camera-based system for autopilot. The company has now said it will eliminate the radar sensor in favor of using a camera-focused autopilot system. The change will apply to Model 3 vehicles starting this month. The move comes as scrutiny has intensified on both autopilot and full autonomous driving, two features that clearly do not live up to their name. In addition, radar sensors are relatively expensive, and this could be yet another reason for Tesla to try to reduce the cost. Luis Elizondo accuses the Pentagon of a concerted effort to discredit him and hide the truth from the people. Luis Elizondo, who ran the Pentagon's UFO program for years and recently revealed it to the world, says the army tried to intimidate and defame him. His whistleblowing triggered an Inspector General investigation. Elizondo is a counterintelligence specialist who was in charge of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program before it was disbanded in 2012. 5 years later, he made public 3 Navy videos showing unexplained aerial phenomena. The Army later confirmed that the videos were authentic, but were not intended for publication. Earlier this month, Elizondo filed a 64-page complaint with the Defense Department's Inspector General's office, accusing several people of dragging his name throughout the mud, threatening his employment, and even attempting to strip him of his security clearance. A child witnesses a circular craft land from his bedroom window. There were several reptilian aliens with weapons wandering around. The witness believes it was some sort of hunting party. In quotes, "I couldn't believe what I saw," he said. There it was, a small circular craft with its landing gear down, and a hatch with the stairs bent all the way to the ground. Next to the craft, there were green lizard-like beings. Their eyes were bright yellow, and they had some tanks on their backs, along with another bag. They had no fingers but webbed hands with what looked like bow and arrow-type weapons. Their bodies were thin and scaly, and even their legs. The feet were V-shaped and looked incredibly tall and strong. Close quotes. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friend.